The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. Welcome into the Hard Count, the college football show. I can't wait to see who's been in costume even before this Halloween we're about to get into tomorrow. It is Thursday, October 30th, 2025. Last one on the face of the planet. Staring down our final show before week 10 of the college football season is ours to have and to hold. On today's episode, we'll get into the eye test rankings ahead of week 10. We'll talk about maybe how we're going to perceive Ohio State here down the stretch. Spoiler alert, the narrative around the Buckeyes is going to get a bit irresponsible. We're here to try to mitigate that whole thing for you. Before we get to that, though, we are now teammates with a one Chris Lowe, who is one of the best in the business when it comes to what he does. So make sure you have membership here at On3. But there is an article out right now that is really revealing when it comes to how that the whole discussion around Lane Kiffin is being perceived when it comes to the LSU job and the Florida job and where he's at right now with Ole Miss. So to give you a preface here, Chris Lowe gave Nick Saban a call, and they had a back and forth. They had a discussion, so go check out that article. But there's a quote that stuck out from that article that I think is pretty interesting for us to unpack together as it pertains to Lane Kiffin and him potentially taking another job. This is per Nick Saban, quote, "Jobs that weren't great jobs before are now. Lane Kiffin, is a name that is up for Florida and the first name up for LSU, but I think you can have a long debate on whether either one of those jobs is actually better than the job he has now, because he has some guys over there at Ole Miss that give him pretty much whatever he wants from a roster standpoint." He goes on to say, maybe you've got some alumni who are passionate about football, but are they willing to invest what you have to invest to win? Because a lot of people still don't believe in this stuff. End quote, paraphrasing there on that last word being used there by one Coach Saban. But it's great stuff by Chris Lowe. Go check out that whole article. But the point that Nick Saban brings up is one that we've been banging the drum on here since the Florida job opened up, since the LSU job opened up. And it's not me being down on either one of those jobs. In a vacuum, those jobs are some of the best, if not the best, in college football, especially LSU with the resources, the track record, all those things. And I think Lane Kiffin will be the number one choice, like Nick Saban is saying, for both those jobs. Top of the wish list. Hope you've been good this year, because when Christmas rolls around here, you're hoping you find a one Coach Kiffin under your tree in Baton Rouge or Gainesville. But my take on this, I don't know how this got lost in translation, my take on this has always been, are we sure that those jobs are better for Lane Kiffin than where he's at right now? Okay? Are LSU and Florida jobs, LSU and Florida in general, better jobs just relative to the rest of the college football pack of jobs that are available right now? 100%. Andy Staples has a ranking of these top jobs available out right now over at on3.com. He's got LSU 1, Florida 2, and I don't think anyone is pushing back against that. But here's the big question for Lane Kiffin. Are they better jobs for Lane? Not are they better jobs in general, but are they better jobs for Lane based on where he's at right now? When I was in middle school, had the option to go to private school or public school. And private school, in general, has a lot more to offer on paper. Probably better teachers, okay? You probably have nicer classrooms. You probably have nicer facilities. You probably have nicer textbooks. You probably have maybe better curriculum. Again, all on paper. But for me personally, in middle school, I thrived in public school. I thrived having a little bit more freedom. I thrived having more people around me that I knew. I thrived in that whole class schedule. So for me, while private school maybe was the better option on paper, for me personally, public school was the better route when it came to my middle school education. And things turned out okay. Same thing is true for Lane Kiffin here. More logo power at LSU in Florida. That's not knocking Ole Miss, just the reality. You look at LSU, you look at Florida, you see that in a high school on a quarter zip. You walk in there as a head coach recruiting, has a little bit extra juice to it. All right, they do have probably as much or maybe better resources, at least from a facility perspective and a just overall money into the school perspective, probably on both those institutions, is my guess. Larger track record for success at an LSU and at a Florida. At LSU, especially the last couple of coaches before Brian Kelly won national championships. On paper, those are both better jobs. But the question is what Nick Saban is asking here, I think is 100% fair. Is it a better job for Lane Kiffin than what he has right now at Ole Miss? Because the Ole Miss argument is they're going to give you what you need when it comes to putting your roster together. Lane Kiffin, beast to his own drum, has used the portal at a very, very high level. I would argue better than anyone else in college football, and they're winning because of that. Trinidad Shambles wasn't on that roster last year when it got him from the D2 level. Okay? Like, they are maximizing the way they do things right now at Ole Miss. And we keep going back to this point, too. Ole Miss has embraced Lane Kiffin. And I'm not in the business of projecting if Florida or LSU would embrace all the Lane Kiffin isms necessarily. Pete Nakos actually is on the show here a little bit later on today's show, and we talk about that in itself. But I know for a fact Ole Miss has embraced the way that Lane Kiffin does things, the way that he recruits the portal, the way that he tweets, the way that he approaches the media, all those things they have embraced, and they have empowered Lane Kiffin on all of those fronts. I'm not saying LSU and Florida wouldn't do that, but I'm saying it's a question. I'm saying it's something you still have to see to believe in some respects. So at Ole Miss, the whole thing is humming right now. We said this before, but I'll say it again. The ceiling at Ole Miss this year is a national championship. This year was not supposed to be the year. Last year was supposed to be the year, and it didn't happen. But this year, with a Division II quarterback and a bunch of new guys through the portal, yet again, you have a chance to go win a national title. So if that's the ceiling this year, logic says it should be the ceiling for years to come, because I don't think you'll be dealing in a much worse situation on paper, that is, going into the season than what you had this year. So with that being the reality, every year should be the year at Ole Miss. Is every year going to be the year LSU and Florida? Yeah, probably. But if it's the same ceiling, why would you leave? Because Ole Miss is already up and running. The thing is already humming over there. At LSU, at the very least, you have to go make sure you retain your roster. You got to get your culture and practices in place. Same deal at Florida. I'm not saying it takes a long time to win at LSU or Florida, but I do know you're already winning right now at Ole Miss. LSU and Florida will both not be in the college football playoff this year. Ole Miss, barring something wildly unforeseen, they will be in the playoff this year. So it comes down to this. I think Lane Kiffin has to decide what he wants. And the unfortunate part for us on this side of things, speaking into a mic and a camera, we don't know what Lane Kiffin wants. We're not inside of his mind. But it comes down to two things. One, does he want a bigger logo? Does he want a little bit more prestige? Is it a big deal that he can go follow in the footsteps of a Steve Spurrier, get a statue out in front of the Swamp? Is that something he wants? Because if it is, it doesn't matter that Ole Miss is humming at this level right now. It does, but again, not necessarily to Lane Kiffin in the context of him taking another job. Now, if it doesn't matter, then stay at Ole Miss and you're in good shape. The other thing that I think he's trying to assess, or is going to have to assess, can he actually do more somewhere else? Because we're all looking at this thing from the outside in and saying, well, Ole Miss is humming this year, therefore common knowledge or logic would present the idea that you should be able to win how you're winning right now in years to come. But I think Lane Kiffin could also give a better maybe pulse to the program there and say, yeah, we're winning right now, we're achieving right now at a high level, but I know I can do this more frequently and more consistently and with more firepower at one of those other schools. So I have maintained this stance. I don't know where this got lost in translation. Let me say it again. I think Lane Kiffin can keep winning at Ole Miss. I think Lane Kiffin can and will stay at Ole Miss. Not because I know anything intel-wise about LSU or Florida. I just think he seems like an individual who is happy where he's at, and he seems to have maybe tempered a little bit of that ambition to be at some other bigger logo or bigger stadium or whatever. Like, I think he's happy at Ole Miss, and I don't think Lane Kiffin, right now at least, is in the business of being happier than happy. So he'll get paid. He'll get all the resources he needs from Ole Miss, and he absolutely should. So that is my own take on things. That could change next week. That could change tomorrow. But as of right now, I don't see why, if you're Lane Kiffin, you would have any desire to leave where you're at right now with Ole Miss. Again, unless there's something personal there where he wants to have the logo or the juice behind him when it comes to what either of those schools present. So, great article, again, by Chris Lowe, talking to Nick Saban. A lot of good intel, a lot of good thoughts over there. Make sure you have a membership over at on3.com. A lot of good stuff there from Chris Lowe and the entire team, and you can read that full article over at on3.com. Now, if you want to read more intel over at on3.com, Pete Nakos does a phenomenal job, and we had the pleasure having my guy over here on the desk. He's back there in the office behind me. Usually he's in here early morning, in here late night. He comes in here on Sunday morning, throws the headphones on, and just gets to grinding on the intel and all those things. A lot of good content from him over on on3.com. We had him, though, on camera on the On3 YouTube channel to ask him about the LSU job, about the Florida job, and just his entire take on the desire for Lane Kiffin and other different candidates for both those jobs here as this carousel continues to spin. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Pete Nakos involving the LSU and Florida openings. We got wild times in the world of the college football coaching carousel. The good news, though, we have someone that can make sense of those wild times. That is our very own here on 3. I was going to call you like an insider. I don't know if we call you like the intel magician. I don't know what the right label is for you, but
magician.
Teammate, insider, knows most things, not everything. Pete Nakos, how we doing, brother?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on.
Dude, this is awesome. There's so much going on, and I want to just talk about 2 jobs specifically with you because there's probably more jobs that will become available, and this landscape's changing and evolving. But LSU seems to have everyone's attention and seems to be the top job on the market as of right now. I don't see any other job available that would make that an untrue statement.
No.
So when it comes to LSU, you put out a hot board. Just walk me through where they're at right now when it comes to their candidate process and kind of figuring out who the right guy's going to be.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, let's go back in time a little bit.
Please.
Right, Sunday, hours after the devastating loss to A&M, you had A&M basically taking over. Death Valley was not a good look. You had Brian Kelly go to the facility. Position coaches were in. They were going on the bye. Players were at home because it was a mandatory off day. Things were good. We expected staff changes. And then, 4 hours later, by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock Central Time, word started to circulate that Brian Kelly was out. So I think it's important to start there to understand how, rapidly this changed on Sunday. And to understand where they're at. There's a lot of questions about what Scott Woodward, the athletic director's future is. The governor's involved, which the governor involved in college football gets things really interesting. So I think the thing that you have to remember when we talk LSU this whole time is that there's a lot of moving pieces, and it's really unclear at this point who was making the hire and when this hire is actually going to be made and when the hiring process is really actually going to start.
And the crazy part about the A&M game is they were up at half.
Yep.
There was a part of you, if you're watching that game, you're saying A&M kind of controlled that game, but LSU's leading. It is Death Valley. It is at night. It is Brian Kelly doing pretty well at night historically at the head coach at LSU.
22.
I think, that second loss ended up being the straw that broke the camel's back, evidently. Going back in time to that whole situation, how on the table was the firing of Brian Kelly going into that game in your mind?
It was something that you were hearing about and, definitely something that you were, understanding that could be on the table later in the year and that a loss to A&M could really set some things up to go in a certain direction. I think that second half, though, just really threw everything off. It's halftime. You're like, okay, maybe LSU's still in the playoff if they can knock off A&M. And then next thing you know, I'm getting texts about what's Brian Kelly's buyout and things like that, and by the end of the third quarter. So things are really just took off in that second half. And I don't think we've slowed down since.
It felt like one of those things where it's tough to unsee certain things across your life. It's tough to unsee mom kissing Santa Claus. It's tough to unsee A&M doing what they did to LSU. In Baton Rouge at night, seeing that student section take over where they were in Death Valley, that whole thing was just jarring. So I guess that part of it makes sense.
Yeah.
But moving to who could be the next head coach at LSU.
Let's do it.
It feels like every single job that opens up that has a big logo next to it, we're all going to just immediately say the same thing of, well, you got to call Marcus Freeman. You got to give him a ring and maybe even shoot him a text. However you want to get in touch with Marcus Freeman, you do that. Is the LSU job any different than the other job openings for one Marcus Freeman in your mind, or what you're hearing?
Just like anything at this point, like Florida, Penn State, LSU, they're all going to reach out to Marcus Freeman. From everything I've been told, Marcus really isn't going to give any thought to that until his season's over. So it's too early to say he's done somewhere, but it's way too early to say he's seriously having conversations anywhere either. And he loves what he's got going on at Notre Dame.
Because I do see things on the internet of Marcus Freeman's already turned down, Florida already turned down, Penn State. Has he turned anywhere down yet that you're aware of?
Yeah, I think we'll find out more about all that as the season goes on.
Gotcha. So let's assume that Marcus Freeman's in that unicorn tier. You can't land him. Everyone's going after Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin seems to be the belle of the ball in this current world we're in with the coaching carousel. Does LSU make more sense for a Lane Kiffin than a Florida in your mind?
I'm not going to really try to pick apart those two differences. I think there's pathways to both that make a lot of sense. LSU is arguably like a top 5 job in college football. It might be even top 3. We could spend all day arguing about that.
Sure.
The proximity to the talent, the recognition of the LSU brand might be incomparable to anyone except in Ohio State or Michigan. So you look at that at LSU, and then at Florida with Lane Kiffin, he has a chance to go be a Steve Spurrier. He can win a national title. Pretty sure he met his wife or ex-wife in Gainesville. So there's some family ties there. At both places, they will build you a statue probably if you won a national title or two.
So in the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes,
let's stay center, right?
Please,
please. He can do a lot of those things at Ole Miss too.
Yeah,
and they're on track to do a lot of that this year.
Which is the hardest part, like you just said, the psychology of it all is kind of where we're at, and you're trying to pick apart the psychology of a one Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to do, so I don't envy your job trying to get out the intel around.
It seems like they're
going
to go deep in the playoff right now. They're going to be favored in every regular season game remaining. They're in a spot to possibly go to the SEC title game. And they've been really fun to watch this year. They're really good. They just won at Oklahoma. It would be really incorrect to say anything like they're going to lose in the first round. Like this is a team that is seriously going to compete for a national title. So then, can you not talk to Lane Kiffin until January 19th? Like later than that, that is something that a lot of athletic directors are trying to think through right now and saying, is it worth waiting for Lane, or do I go get someone now that I know can start talking to recruits before the December 3rd National Signing Day, before the portal opens on January 2nd? All those things are being taken into account across the country, specifically, LSU and Florida.
Especially for Lane Kiffin, who majors so heavily in maximizing the portal for his roster every single year, and we're not going to get that guy until, again, if he plays for a national championship, 2+ weeks after that portal opens. It feels like it wouldn't make a ton of sense. And the portal's
only open for 15 days. So now, now you're really getting in the nitty-gritty. If an LSU or Florida hires Lane in late January, he would have to deal with the portal opening again for some players at the school he picked. It'll be a mess. It'll be like nothing we've seen before. But when we talk about all this now too, I think we have to rethink what dates the college football coaching carousel can fall under.
So there's the Lane Kiffin tier and the Marcus Freeman tier, and then
I would say they're in the same tier.
Yeah,
I don't want to say they're in different. I think they're in the same tiers.
Would you say that a Lane Kiffin? Because in my mind, I'm like, Marcus Freeman is maybe hanging up the phone quicker than a Lane Kiffin would be. Do you think that's still accurate? Maybe. Or is that accurate to begin with, I guess is my question.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you have those two guys, put them in the same tier or different tiers. Then it feels like there's a laundry list of other different guys that would make sense for an LSU to go after. You and I talked about the fit of a Brent Key if he decided he wanted to leave Georgia Tech.
Line of scrimmage would be great.
Eli Drinkwitz, now they're going to play a freshman quarterback. Looks like if you're trying to get him into your building. He's going to have a lot of interest
from everyone across the board, yeah.
He may not be in the college football playoff like I predicted they would be midway through the season, neither here nor there. What is is it truly as grouped together as it is in my mind when it comes to everyone else outside of those two guys? Or is there like it's Brom and Drinkwitz probably at the top, and then some other guys mixed in, or like what's the separation in that middle pack of candidates in your mind for this LSU job?
I think it's so early at LSU. I'm just gonna pack it all together.
That's great.
I'm not gonna come out and say there's like that much differentiators. Now you mentioned Drink, Brom, Brent Key. I think Clark Lee is going to get brought up in that conversation. The G6 name that continues to be brought up with the LSU job in particular. You get a John Summerall who's in-state at Tulane, won 2 conference titles at Troy, was in the American title game in year 1 at Tulane. He makes a lot of sense. Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. He is at his alma mater. He's done so much. He's made a playoff. Does he want to try to bite off the SEC or staying close to home? What he wants, like all those names make sense. Joe Brady, the Buffalo Bills head coach, not head coach, offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
He's gonna get brought up a lot for a lot of NFL head coaching jobs, but that do the heartstrings kind of
2019 was a good year,
2019
man.
was a big year with Joe Brady. So, and there's a lot of other names we can talk about, but those are like kind of the sitting power 4 group of 6 head coaches who make sense. Plus, you get the NFL name in there too.
I'm just going way off the reservation here.
Okay.
Does an Ed Orgeron factor into any of these openings? Maybe it's not LSU, maybe it's not Florida, but is he like an Arkansas potential guy? Could he end up being on the staff at LSU if they hire the right guy? Like, where does Ed Orgeron fall in this discussion? Because talking about LSU, he feels like a name that's going to get brought up by wild corners of Twitter.
So Coach O's name keeps coming up at a lot of places. And I wouldn't say he's like the top candidate, but he's an interesting candidate. So, like, yes, an Arkansas would be interesting. I don't see him in that top group of candidates at this point.
Sure.
I've got a lot of phone calls in the last 10 days about his name coming up at certain schools. Like, if you hire a coordinator or an assistant coach who has never been a head coach before, do you bring in Coach O to help with recruiting and kind of set the culture? Things like that.
Awesome.
He's really interested, too, in trying to get back to the West Coast. He had so much success at USC. His name's come up at UCLA and Oregon State early on. We'll see how those searches continue to go. But, yeah, he's intriguing.
Intriguing, if nothing else, just as a human being. Take college football away from it. The dude's just an intriguing person.
Well, and if you and I, let's say you're the AD, I'm the head coach, and we're like, okay, like, how do we want to build a culture and attack, like, recruiting and stuff? I'm like, yeah, I want Coach O sitting in, like, kitchens and living rooms. So, yeah.
Let's get him in here.
Yeah.
With that big, deep Cajun voice. I'm all the way here for that. Last question on LSU before we pivot to Florida. Kind of a bridge to the two is I feel like a lot of them, when I talk through what the wish list would be when it comes to criteria. I'm like, okay, bravado, LSU and Florida both probably want that. Visor guy like Lane Kiffin, Spurrier, Edge probably both want that. Score points probably both want that. Is there any big differentiating factor when you're breaking down the candidates of an LSU and a Florida in terms of, well, Florida needs to have this, whereas LSU isn't really interested in this certain factor with their next head coach?
I don't know if it's like a very stark differentiator. I think Florida is really Billy Napier was good at a lot of things. The one thing that he was not was someone who was loud. And when I think about a Lane Kiffin or Eli Drinkowitz, I think of someone who loves to coach ball, but also does it in a very vivid way. And that just wasn't Billy Napier. And Billy Napier, did a lot of things right. It just didn't work on the field.
Sure.
My point is, I think Florida really wants to be like, can we go get our next Steve Spurrier? LSU, I think, is just like, who's going to win national titles here? And Florida wants that just as much too. But when I think of the Florida job right now, like they want Lane, they want someone like Lane. So ideally, they want Lane. But we'll see how it all shakes out.
Well, that's perfect. Let's pivot to Florida then in that vein and talk about a one Lane Kiffin, because maybe some of this too, Pete, is like the LSU job is open now for less than 7 days. So I've had a week longer to sit with the idea
14 days
of Lane Kiffin wearing the blue and orange. I've seen all the coaching gear swaps on social media. Like, I can visualize very clearly Lane Kiffin in the swamp, throwing his clipboard, calling up sweet pass plays for Lago or whoever the quarterback is for them next year. Is that purely like the fact that we've had longer to sit with that idea as a college football public, or is there potentially, we mentioned like the emotional ties, and I believe his affection for the way Steve Spurrier coached football. How much of that is real and how much of that is just like we're living in the social media of it all right now?
The emotional ties are there. The looking up to Steve Spurrier is there. That's all there. He's just going to have a heck of a decision to make. It's sign a contract to be very well paid at Ole Miss and keep building, where he's really reset his coaching career and it's really grown. It's go to LSU, have some of the best resources, and I know for a fact that some people around Lane are going to believe that LSU is the best coaching job in the country, and I think it's really hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
But then at Florida, you have a situation where there's really nothing like the swamp when the swamp's rolling. You get a situation where they're committed to the resources. There's a beautiful facility. And then there's some, like we talked about, the emotional ties are there. So I think it's still really early to try to predict which way it's all going to go.
Help me understand this when it comes to the inner workings at Florida. There is a part of me that thinks about the Lane Kiffin experience when you bring him on as a head coach.
Okay.
He's going to talk his cash at the press conference. He's going to troll on Twitter. He's going to do a lot of Lane Kiffin things that when you're winning, people are more okay with. in your first year at a new job, and if you do hit the reset a little bit on a roster, let's just say that Florida goes out and they win 8 games their first year with Lane Kiffin, assuming he takes that job.
Okay.
I don't know that the Laneisms play as well. The thing with Ole Miss is like they have embraced that. They have empowered that. They're like, Lane Kiffin, do what you want to do. We'll give you what you need, and we'll embrace you, the human being and the coach.
What are we calling a Laneism?
A Laneism where he's tweeting after the game about his daughter's outfit, and he's posting pictures with his daughter on the field before they play LSU.
If they're winning football games at Florida with Lane Kiffin, I don't think they're going to care.
What if they're not winning 10 games? What if they're like, slow-ish start, still getting his portal guys in there. They win 7 games.
Then fans are going to need to remember what he took over and where things are at. And, I think Florida has a talented roster right now. I think if there's something that Billy Napier is really good at, it is the roster construction. I think it's a good roster. It just didn't really translate onto the field.
Yeah.
I think that the next head coach of Florida can step in and win a decent bit.
I think so too.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
The portal's a funny thing that we're trying to quantify right now because we've seen a head coach leaves. Usually that roster has the potential to look very different. Or if you bring in Lane Kiffin, you probably can retain a lot of those guys.
You would hope,
that whole thing is interesting. I guess my question to put a finer point on this is like, how high maintenance do you perceive the powers that be at Florida to be? Will they let Lane Kiffin be Lane Kiffin the way that Ole Miss lets Lane Kiffin be Lane Kiffin?
I think at this point, and who and what Lane Kiffin has become, I think any athletic director who wants to hire Lane is going to let Lane be Lane because it worked at Ole Miss. And if you just give him the space and the money to get it done, it'll work.
I love that. When you mastered your craft and you're showing you can give people what they're asking for, you just got to kind of trust the process. I think it's a really good point. I'm curious to see how that whole thing unfolds. Around Florida, though, I went on Twitter as soon as Billy Napier was fired and said, hey, Lane Kiffin, for what we just said, I don't know if he would leave Ole Miss. I don't know how that would work. Eli Drinkwitz makes sense to me. The people over at Gators Online, the On3 message board for Florida, and the people on Twitter said, JD, he's not even top 3 for us as a fan base. I don't know if that's actually how they feel, if it was just victim of the moment. We want Lane Kiffin. How realistic is the Eli Drinkwitz potential to the Swamp?
Listen, next to Lane Kiffin, the 2 names I hear about the most at this point, and yet again, it's early.
Sure.
Is Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri and Jeff Brom at Louisville. And listen, I know, not everyone in the Florida fan base likes Eli Drinkwitz, but it's really hard to, you got to go macro here and think about what Missouri football is historically and what he's done.
Yeah.
I think he has the track record of building a program. I think that's really attractive, and the fact that he did that in the SEC. And, he's probably going to act like Steve Spurrier.
Yeah,
and
legitimately.
Is that not what you guys want in Lane Kiffin? So, maybe sure, there's going to be a faction of fans who don't like Eli Drinkwitz, but I'm confident if you give the guy 2 to 4 years, he's going to be playing at the high end of the SEC. And if he did it at Missouri, I'm pretty confident he can do it at Florida.
For all the flack that I'm perceiving a Lane Kiffin to potentially get if he ends up at Florida, Eli Drinkwitz is a little bit more vivacious with the way that he presents him, a little bit more volume to the guy. So I think that could be honestly a good fit in that sense. You mentioned Jeff Brom. How much of a concern is it for the folks in these, decision-making rooms that obviously want someone who's won in the SEC? How much is the fact that he hasn't, or he's not coming from that conference rather, for a job like a Florida or even an LSU for that matter?
Listen, Jeff Brom was a hell of a football player when he played.
Yeah.
He's accomplished a heck of a lot at Purdue and Louisville without the most resources. Jeff Brom's not going to be the guy who wins the press conference, but he's proven over and over again that he can win football games, compete in the ACC. He took Purdue to a Big Ten title game.
Yeah.
Think about that. So yes, I think he'd be a good fit at a SEC school. I think he could win there.
Absolutely love it. Pete, last thing for you. We appreciate all your time. Is there one thing that you want folks in Gainesville to remember or think about as we move further and further into this whole coaching carousel cycle, or just maybe something that is being overlooked at this point relative to the Florida head coaching search? Because I think we're all so narrow-minded of it's Kiffin or it's Drink, Brom maybe, but it feels like maybe it's a little bit wide open at this point in time. What do you want to just throw the people to make sure they're thinking about in the midst of this search in Gainesville?
I think just make sure you go hire a ball coach, right? I know we talked about it a little bit. Like, I think Billy Napier did some things really well. I think he was good at roster construction. I think he made the resources work at Florida. What he clearly was not good at, though, was managing games. So you need to go get someone that you feel confident can go manage a game. You need to go hire someone that, like, hey, if we go to the college football playoff, like, they're going to make sure 12 people are on the field.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
And I'm not taking, like, shots here at Billy
No,
Napier,
but it's a real thing.
But it's been things that have held Florida back under Napier's tenure. So go hire a ball coach.
It's a real thing. I think it's a great point. And I think I haven't met anybody in this world that has anything negative to say about Billy Napier, the human being, or
Great
how he
guy.
put together the roster, or any of those things. It's just like, at the end of the day, it's a result-oriented business, and the results weren't there. And that's why we're talking about the Florida job being open, about the LSU job being open. But make sure you're locked here at the On3 YouTube channel. We'll have all the intel for you. Make sure you have membership at on3.com. Pete just turning out banger after banger article, all the intel there. Pete, as always, man, appreciate you making some time, bro.
Appreciate it, JD.
Great stuff, as always, from our very own Pete Nakos. Again, make sure you have a membership over at on3.com. I wasn't sure we were going to do this every single week, y'all, to be honest with you. I wasn't sure how much this exercise was going to be worth us doing together here for the duration of where we are right now in the college football season. So we'll keep doing it as long as it's relevant, as long as y'all want it. The eye test top 5, man. We're not going off of the numbers so specifically. We're not going so much off of what the narratives are. We are going off of what our eyes tell us, the top 5 teams in college football, and how they look. Now, full transparency, my rankings that I do every Sunday after the college football weekend wraps up are going to be different week in and week out than the eye test rankings. But remember, we're getting into college football playoff ranking reveal show season. That's going to happen this Tuesday, and they're going to talk about resume, going to talk about eye test. So the whole hope in doing this is to provide a framework for how we're assessing the eye test part of things when those college football playoff rankings are released. At number 5, and this week's eye test top 5, could easily be Oregon here. So it was a matter of splitting hairs, but I'm going to go Ole Miss. Okay, now Ole Miss, if you're scoring 30+ at Georgia with a Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann defense, and you're scoring 30+ against Brent Venables at his place, I'm going to go ahead and just responsibly, and maybe if it's your own a differing opinion, irresponsibly believe that Lane Kiffin and Trinidad Chambliss, you go ahead and lock the gates, put them on a field for 4 quarters, they're going to score points. Now, the Washington State game maybe leaves a little bit to be desired. I understand that. But I've seen Ole Miss do whatever they want offensively against too many good football teams and good defensive coordinators to look at that outfit and say, yeah, they're probably going to do that here the rest of the way. So Ole Miss, they will be a college football playoff team. And based on what my eyes tell me right now, a top 5 team relative to the eye test after 9 weeks of the college football season. Lane Kiffin, you can argue, the best game planner in college football as of today. I don't think that's a hot take by any stretch of the imagination. Now, number 4. A team that you could also talk about being one of the best offensive units in college football, Alabama. You're saying, wait, JD, talking about the eye test, they didn't look all that great against South Carolina. And South Carolina's got their own problems. Listen, 1, it's Cocktober. 2, it was at Williams-Brice. 3, back against the wall after they just had a tough loss the week before to Oklahoma. Lenora Sellers is still an action figure, both in the metaphorical and literal sense that you can still buy the Lenora Sellers action figure somewhere across the internet. I'm impressed that Alabama found a way to get it done without their fastball. So maybe it didn't have the margin of victory that you were desiring from Alabama in that spot. No, they didn't cover the spread, but they didn't have their best game. They were on the road. All those external variables I just spoke to you in terms of South Carolina bringing their best to the table against Alabama, and Alabama still, in crunch time, found a way to lean on their best players and win a football game on the road. You don't apologize for winning the SEC on the road. You don't apologize if you're Alabama for winning every game since week 1 against Florida State. And that game week 1 against Florida State, I don't even think this Alabama team was present for that game. It was a totally different Alabama team, a bunch of clones. Neither here nor there. Alabama, number 4 in this week's eye test rankings for me. Now, this top 3, I'll just be real with y'all. You could have any one of these 3 teams I'm about to mention as your number 1 team based on your own eye test. And that's why we're doing this whole thing. The eye test is going to differ from team to team. I got Indiana at number 3. Indiana is number 1 in America when it comes to margin of victory. 29 points. They just ended UCLA's entire football program with their win over in Bloomington last week. I'm being facetious. UCLA fans, I love y'all. It's a joke, all right? Calm down. Right now, Indiana is, I think, arguably the most well-rounded team in college football. You could sell me on A&M as well, but what they have at quarterback in the first rounder there, Biletnikoff, caliber wide receiver in Sage Surratt, as well as Amari Cooper out there making plays from on the perimeter. That defensive front seven is not just like good relative to the middle tier of the Big Ten. It's like good relative to the top tier in college football. There's nothing tricky about Indiana, and I keep saying this, but I have to drive this home. People aren't that familiar with the Indiana logo being at the top of college football. You better get used to it. You better get used to it because there's nothing smoke and mirror-ish or sleight of hand-ish. They just show up, beat your brains in on the line of scrimmage, throw the ball over your head. Their coach frowns the entire time. It's awesome. Indiana, if you have them at number 1, again, you hear it in my voice. I'm not fighting you on it. I'm splitting hairs, but Indiana, number 3 for me in the eye test rankings after this week in college football. Now at number 2, am I being a little bit prisoner of the moment? Maybe. Like I made the joke about Indiana ending UCLA's football program. That's not actually what happened. A&M, though, they actually did get a coach fired. LSU had A&M roll into their place, beat the doors off of them, especially in that second half. So much so that the powers that be at LSU sat back, watched all that happen, watched what A&M did to them and said, $53 million is not that much, is it? We're good for $50+ million to get our head coach fired and kind of switch this whole thing around because what A&M just did to us at our place at night, we can't have that happen ever again. Think about that. Emptying out Tiger Stadium if you're A&M. That, to me, was enough to put them at number 2 in the eye test rankings. And again, if you have them at number 1, I'm not fighting that hard against it. The way that A&M is explosive offensively paired with the persona of what this football team is right now, we'll talk more about A&M a little bit later in our bye-week breakdown, bye-week check-in. If I were drafting offenses and I were drafting overall like leadership of a football team, it'd be very difficult for me not to go A&M in the first round of that whole draft. Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver, Ruben Owens, Marcel Reed, we're just naming names here. You're like, JD, we get it. They got a lot of good players. No. I don't think we're all aligned here as to how dynamic they are this year relative to the rest of college football and also relative to what they were last year. Why are they so much better this year? Well, one, the good folks out there in College Station, led by Mike Elko, went to the portal and got a Mario Craver, got a Casey Concepcion. That's one part of it. The other part of it is they are the best team in college football, in my mind, at being able to reset because they were down by 4 at half against LSU on the road. Punt gets blocked. Marshall Reed, a couple of picks. Shrug it off, no problem. Go win that game by a comfortable margin and go drop 40 on Brian Kelly's head, and it was what it was. So Mike Elko and co., they are number 2 based on what they did last week, what they've done to this point in the season, given my eye test, top 5 for these rankings this week. Now, at number 1, it's Ohio State. I don't feel good dropping a team after not playing a game. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't sit well with me. Ohio State's been too impressive this year to not have them number 1 right now in these eye test rankings. And here's my thing with Ohio State. They may not have the same margin of victory as in Indiana. Indiana's number 1. Ohio State's still top 5, so we're not down on Ohio State with margin of victory. But it's how it looks whenever you watch Ohio State play football. Taking a step further, it's how you feel when the other team has the football against Ohio State. I don't care where they are on the field. I don't care if they're inside the 20. I don't care if they're at the 50. I do not care where the opposition is at against Ohio State. I don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to score. And I'm not saying they're going to score a touchdown. I'm saying I don't have a lot of confidence they're even going to get 3 on this Ohio State football team. Like we've seen Illinois have to run trick plays on the 1-yard line to get in the end zone against Ohio State. Their second try down there inside the 1-yard line. Ohio State is a wagon on the defensive side. That's not a question. The offensive side, though, and the firepower they're starting to access, that Death Star becoming more and more operational. Julian Sayin went for 3 bills against Wisconsin the other week. That's going to be I don't want to say it's a consistent occurrence, but a more familiar occurrence here for college football fans, especially Ohio State fans here the rest of the way. So they didn't play a game this last week. I don't care. My eyes tell me they're one of the best, if not the best team in college football. The playoff rankings will have this all over the place. A lot of it will be resume, but based on the eye test, this is what I think the top 5 should look like relative to just how you look at these teams on Saturday afternoons and not factoring in too heavily the resume, not factoring in too heavily all these different analytics. That, to me, is the top 5 in college football based on just strictly what your eyes are saying. So at 5, very, very nearly went Oregon. I'll go Ole Miss at 5, Alabama at 4, Indiana at 3, A&M at 2, and the Ohio State Buckeyes at number 1 in my eye test top 5 this week. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the Buckeyes here, because they play Penn State this weekend. And isn't it kind of awkward? We thought this was going to be awesome. We thought this was going to be kind of a kick the door down moment potential for Penn State. This was the year where they brought all their guys back, and Drew Aller was going to lead them to a program-defining victory at some point this year. Maybe it was going to be this game when they go to Columbus, and now we're sitting here, and James Franklin is not the head coach. Drew Aller is unfortunately not the quarterback, and Ohio State is favored by 3 scores at the crib against Penn State. So it's not Ohio State's fault that Penn State's not that great, but I want us to get aligned on what the narrative is going to be around the Buckeyes here going forward. Because when the narrative changes and teams aren't playing as many ranked teams down the stretch in the month of November, there's always a tendency for the narrative to get a bit out of whack. The noise around Ohio State is going to get turned down drastically here in the next couple of weeks. One, what I just said, when you're playing Penn State, when you're at Purdue, you play Rutgers, it doesn't really get the people going too much. Also, the college football playoff rankings, they're going to come out next Tuesday. I don't think Ohio State's going to be number 1. And that's not me telling you they shouldn't be number 1, but I think the committee will say Indiana, 2 top 10 wins, A&M, y'all look really good. I could see Ohio State being number 2. I could see them being as low as 3. I will have them at number 1 if they win this weekend. That is my pledge to you, Ohio State fans, so don't come at me in the comment section. That's what I think is going to happen. However, the fact that you won't be the number 1 team in America after Tuesday, based on those rankings, for my money, and the fact that you don't have a bunch of highly ranked spotlight games the rest of the way, you're going to have what I just said, the noise around Ohio State as a football program dialed down a little bit. Not going to be a lot of talk around the Buckeyes. Why? Because there won't be a big reason to talk about the Buckeyes. Again, when you're playing at Purdue and running roughshod over the Boilermakers, there's not going to be a big reason to have a huge discussion around what Ohio State is doing. So when you take the spotlight off of them and you don't hear so much from them, what do you do whenever you don't hear from a buddy after a while? Hey, what's up with them? Are they okay? And then you start filling in blanks in your own mind. Oh, something must be up with them. Oh, they must be kind of down bad. I wonder if they're still dating so-and-so. I wonder if they got fired from their job. I wonder if they're actually doing okay right now. That's what you say when you don't hear from someone for an extended period of time. But the reality is Ohio State, I think they're going to maximize this runway they have. Reason why I feel that way, I saw the Wisconsin game. Wisconsin's not great. Like Wisconsin, we could do a whole 5 to 15 minutes on y'all's current status right now in Madison, and it'd be worthwhile doing in some respects. But Ohio State very evidently walked into that game and said, we're going to get Julian Sayin some reps at pushing the ball downfield. And he went for over 350 yards. He had a great day at the office. And Julian Sayin, I promise you, has a different level of confidence in himself having done what he did against Wisconsin than he had going into that game. And so using that as my, guide here for these next couple of games, Ohio State's going to take this game, again, to recap it for you here, Penn State at Purdue, Rutgers, before the Michigan game. They're going to use that runway to work on themselves. So you're not hearing from your buddy. He's not hitting you up as much. You're wondering if he's okay. Ohio State's just in the gym right now working on themselves. Ohio State's just in the lab right now getting Julian Sayin right, getting the run scheme going, having the defense even add some more tricks into their bag. So when they play Michigan, it will be 10 toes down. You know what we're here for. We're in Ann Arbor to take back what we believe is ours. We're not playing games with y'all this year, is the attitude I think you have if you're an Ohio State fan. And the runway they have right now, as much as that volume is going to be turned down and there's going to be less said about Ohio State and even some irresponsible things said about Ohio State. People saying they haven't played anybody. People saying Ohio State hasn't met any resistance. Even if that's true or not true, Ohio State, I fully believe, will be utilizing this runway to get teed up for the Michigan game, for the Big Ten title, and for the college football playoff. Now, for best results, Ohio State, this is pretty straightforward, but you got to play in the Big Ten title game. Like, if you're losing to Rutgers, we got a different conversation to be had about Ohio State this year. I digress. But when you play in the Big Ten title game, this is going to sound a little bit bizarre, so roll with me here. It's not even so much for me about Ohio State winning the Big Ten. Now, before the year, I predicted Ohio State to win the Big Ten. Mid-season, I picked Ohio State to win the Big Ten. So I have doubled down at 2 separate occasions as the Buckeyes to be your Big Ten champions. However, I am more concerned if I'm Ohio State when it comes to my national title aspirations about just stepping under that heavy bar. If you've watched this show, you know exactly what we're talking about. When you play college football and you have a squat test day, when I was at Baylor, They put a weight that was about 100 pounds more than what I was going to have to lift the next day for one rep on my back, and just had to stand with it. Just stand with it. You're not lifting it right now. Just put it on your back and feel what that's like to have that heavy bar on your back. What that does, kicks up your nervous system, essentially allows you to understand what you're about to get into and the kind of resistance you're going to feel. So when you go play Indiana in the Big Ten title game, it'd be awesome if you lift it. I think you will lift it, full transparency. But the fact that you're going to feel that heavy weight on your back for the first time before the college football playoff, that's where the value lies. That's where this Ohio State team gets really dangerous, because it's not about the parts for Ohio State. It's not. Nobody's questioning or should question the talent of a Julian Sayin or a Jeremiah Smith or what they have on the defensive side. I think we've kind of passed all those checkpoints, rather, conversationally. The question is, are they all finely tuned, ramped up, running hot for when you play Indiana, for when you play Michigan, for when you go play whoever you play in the first or second round of the college football playoff? That's what it's about for Ohio State. So beware the narrative getting a little bit irresponsible. Ohio State, how good are they really? They haven't seen them play anybody in a while. Don't worry about that. Ohio State's working on themselves. When they get to Michigan, when they get to Indiana, that's where the real value lies for the Buckeyes when it comes to all they want to achieve here in conference, winning the conference title, and in the college football playoff, going back-to-back as national champs. All right, so we'll unpack that, obviously, as it gets further and further into this season. But if you want to rep the Buckeyes a little bit here, Roback, they're a friend of the show. They're bringing you the hard count today. They do a phenomenal job when it comes to all things activewear, all things comfortability during college football season. And if you shop their game day collection, they got this sweet hoodie with the script Ohio on it. If I were a Ohio State alum, I'd feel comfortable rocking it. It's dope, dude. Roback has got you covered for all things comfortable activewear, both in the crispier season for our folks out there in the Northeast. I know some folks out there on the West Coast still kind of have some reasonably cool weather to work with. Maybe you're still wearing shorts. Whatever you're rocking, joggers, polos, T-shirts, whatever it is, Roback has got you covered. So use code JD, just those two letters, no periods, at roback.com for 20% off all new customers through the end of this week. That's spelled RHOBACK.com, code JD to save yourself some money if you're buying that Ohio State hoodie or you're buying whatever else over at roback.com. They got you covered. Again, code JD, 20% off all new customers. All right, so Ohio State, they are in great position to make the college football playoff. It's not breaking news to anyone. But we're at this point in the year where we're rounding the corner into the month of November, and we're looking at what these teams have ahead of them. And I keep going back to Tennessee. And y'all, just to keep it a buck right now, because if nothing else, we value transparency and honesty on this show, I am talking myself in to Tennessee being a college football playoff team. And the reason why, November is a sprint, right? November, you got a couple of games left. Oklahoma this week, New Mexico State, at Florida Vanderbilt. You're hurtling towards the end of your college football season. When it's a sprint, don't you want to trust the team with the big motor? Is there a bigger motor out there in college football offensively than Tennessee? 42 points a game, 179 rushing yards a game, 9.2 yards a pass, missile launching as they won Joey Aguilar. I understand that Tennessee's got their issues defensively. We'll talk about that here in a second. But are any of those teams catching Oklahoma in a sprint? If Oklahoma gets up 10-0 on any of those teams, are they slowing them down? I don't think so. I don't. And here's the thing, too. Josh Heupel has proven over his entire time in Knoxville, he's able to downshift a little bit. He's able to win multiple ways. Now, the thing is, Tennessee, they don't have the same tools they had previously to be able to downshift. They don't have a defense to lean on like they did last year where you can go score less than 30 and win a football game. But the reality is, your coach who knows how to cook, if he doesn't have the same ingredients, he can still get you something. That's what all great chefs can do. Having been in hospitality school for my undergraduate degree, I know it doesn't matter what ingredients I give this chef. If I give him better ingredients, I get a better product, but he's going to be able to make me something. If I got cat liver and Pop-Tarts, he'll still be able to make it work. Now, you'd like to give him a little bit better than cat liver and Pop-Tarts, but the point remains. If Tennessee gets into a spot against Vanderbilt where they have to downshift and run a 4-minute offense, I'm comfortable in assuming Josh Heupel can find a way to get that done. If you're playing a close game at Florida, I know people think that Florida's got this hex on Tennessee and they haven't won there since early 2000s. Again, I don't care. I really don't. I think Josh Heupel, with how this offense is working right now, will be able to find a way. So the ingredients plus what Josh Heupel's done since he's gotten to Knoxville, the way he's got it trending, Every single year, you give him new ingredients, he finds a way to make it work. I feel the same way about the situational football that Tennessee will be able to play here down the stretch. And the defense, to speak to the part of the audience right now that's yelling, JD, the defense sucks. Defense isn't good. Defense, I hear you. I understand where you're coming from. But legitimately, there's no team left on this schedule for Tennessee that they're going to play to where if Tennessee just wins the turnover battle, I'm not saying hold them to under 300 yards total offense. I'm not saying that they have this stonewall kind of look against a Vanderbilt or an Oklahoma or a Florida. I'm not saying that. But if you just win the turnover battle, guess what that means? Extra bullets for Joey Aguilar. More possessions for Josh Heupel. If you win the turnover battle, you will win all these games. That is my declaration to you, Tennessee fans. So Tennessee defense, you know what? As bad as they've been opportunistic. Even when Cutter Bulley's going for 330 yards against you, throwing 5 touchdowns. The quarterback for Kentucky wasn't even supposed to start this year for the good folks out there in Lexington. He tore Tennessee up, but guess what? Threw a pick 6. Tennessee, opportunistic defense. If you win the turnover battle against Vandy, Vandy's a good football team, but they have thinner margins when it comes to time of possession, how they run the ball, the way that they sort of force you to press a little bit. You win the turnover battle against Vandy, you will win that football game. Same thing for Oklahoma and Mexico State and the game at Florida. So if this happens, if the gut that I have, the feeling around Tennessee being a playoff team ends up being correct, think about the recruiting pitch you're making then if you're Josh Heupel. Hey, we lost our starting quarterback after our spring game. Went and got a dude that we didn't have spring practice with, and oh, by the way, he had never played a snap in the SEC. And we had a top 3 offense in college football and made the playoff. Think about the pitch you're making then to a 5-star high school quarterback product or a 5-star prospect at wide receiver or any given number of players that you can convince them, hey, listen, it wasn't situationally teed up for us to be awesome this year. People were talking about us winning 8 games. We won 10 and made the playoff. I do more with less. Think about what I'm going to do if I get you 5-star prospect and you 5-star prospect's teammate to come to Knoxville with me and we can go run it up here in Knoxville. I think that would be an extremely attractive pitch on the trail for Josh Heupel and co. Because to be real, that's the little they're in the red zone right now is Tennessee when it comes to closing the gap between them and the rest of the SEC for the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world. That is the 10-yard difference for them. That is the margins for them. When they go match up on the line of scrimmage and a raw ingredients perspective with those football teams, all bets are off. So you make the playoff this year, Josh Heupel in Tennessee. I think Tennessee already gives Josh Heupel what he needs from a resources perspective, but you double down and give that dude whatever he wants. Whatever he wants. Hey, I need to have a bounce house in front of my stadium for these recruits this weekend. Done. Hey, I need to have a speed. I don't even know what the recruiting violations would look like for things he would ask for. You give him what he needs is my point here. You give him what he needs because he's proven what he's done to this point. And if he does it being the playoff this year, with what they had going into the year, I have no more questions or reservations that I have about Josh Heupel if I am the powers that be at Tennessee. And I don't think anybody in Tennessee has reservations about Josh Heupel to begin with, but you hear where I'm coming from. I think they're going to make the playoff, and I think that when he does that, it's up and it's stuck for everyone in Knoxville in terms of what they can accomplish there the rest of the way. So let's check in here on A&M because they've been the story in college football, I think, really for the last couple of weeks, especially this past week. They're on a bye this week, but I want to just check in with the folks out there in College Station here really quick. I am on a number of different A&M message boards, and there is still a small, or there was a small level of hesitation baked in here as A&M is doing awesome things this year. Hey, 8-0 for the first time since the early 1990s. Hey, we just won in Baton Rouge for the first time since 1994, whatever it was. That's awesome. That is different, but I've been hurt too many times. I don't know if I'm down to get hurt again and get my hopes up, JD. I hear you. I understand where you're coming from, but I'm just here to tell you, believe what you're seeing, believe what you're feeling because it's different. It is different. I was on with David Nuno of Texags the other day, and he said the exact same thing. It feels different this year. Reason why it's different, you have a guy at quarterback pulling the trigger you can trust in Marcel Reed. That pass rush, getting home against LSU with 4 to the tune of 7 sacks. LSU is not great on the offensive line, but to be in Baton Rouge at night, desperate mode for that team, and to get home 7 times without blitzing once, the weapons in Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, the depth of weapons you have where you lose Le'Veon Moss and still drop 40-plus on LSU. Like, this is very different stuff. And it's different not just for A&M in the context of what they've been historically. This is different across college football. Like, I think the only team that has as much depth at a playmaker sector as A&M in the SEC is maybe Alabama. And even then, I like A&M's run game a lot more than Alabama's right now. So last year sucked, A&M. I hear that. Last year sucked. And not because it was a bad year. It sucked because it felt like you were getting hit over the head once again with their battered Aggie syndrome. And I don't want to keep doing the video that we've done here a number of times of it's okay to believe again. But I just have to acknowledge this. Like the portion of the fan base here in College Station that is saying, yes, I love this, JD, but I'm not 100% sure that I want to get hurt again. The reason why I think you can have more confidence in this year's team than last year's team is because of last year's team. JD, what do you mean by that? Last year, you were staring down the barrel of beating Texas, going to Atlanta and playing for the SEC championship, and if you did both those things, you're in the college football playoff. But you didn't. Why? Well, couldn't meet the moment. Texas was pretty good last year, but also you had it teed up to make the playoff even before that Texas game. Hey, we just got to go to Auburn and win. We just got to beat South Carolina at their place and win. Didn't happen. So because it didn't happen last year, guess what? A lot of the dudes that were a part of that failure last year, they remember that. That sticks with them. I fully believe that. I think that probably stings a little bit. I think that probably leaves them a little bit scarred. But guess what? The scars of this A&M football team are a good thing. It's a good thing. It means that you have been through something. It means that you know what it is to have some of those negative experiences. But those negative experiences make this A&M team, I think, that much more dangerous because they've been through those things. I think they're stronger because of those things. And so the psychology of this A&M team, I don't think there's that same sped up breath, big eyes feeling they have here going down the stretch of, oh my gosh, we're 8-0. Oh my gosh, we can make the playoff. Why? Because they were there last year. Not 8-0, but hey, we were in this exact same position a year ago. We controlled our own playoff destiny and we could go do all we wanted to. And we're talking about battered Aggie syndrome being done forever. You had this same conversation a year ago. But because you had that conversation a year ago, this team is better positioned for that. That's the psychological side of this. Let's talk about the literal side of this. The schedule to finish this year is substantially better than what you had to finish last year. Like, this is not really novel analysis, but let's just roll through this here. At Missouri, okay, Missouri's going to be a tough out. It's Eli Drinkwitz and company. They're probably playing a true freshman quarterback when you see him. So think about that for a second. You play South Carolina. South Carolina got you last year. Well, they got you last year at night at Williams-Brice. This year it's in College Station. It'll be either a noon Eastern or a 1 Eastern kick. Not the same juice, not the same South Carolina. It's a different A&M, okay? Check that box. It's Samford, not Stanford, not the farm. Samford, the Bulldogs. Feel pretty good about that one. I think A&M fans do as well. Then you're at Texas. You could drop 2 of those. You don't plan to, but you could drop 2 of those and be in good position. And I don't know that I think A&M's dropping any of those the rest of the way. Juxtapose that with at Jordan-Hare at night. Desperate Auburn team. At South Carolina at night. Very different situation this year down the stretch than what A&M had last year down the stretch. And the final thought here, I think that going back to the psychology part of this, I think this team views themselves differently than last year. And I don't want to get too cliche or metaphorically here, but like legitimately, I think this A&M team, by nature of how they acted after that LSU win, there was no like emotional relief or letdown or anyone crying because they were just so happy they beat LSU at night in Baton Rouge. It was like, yeah, kind of expected this. Marcel Reed's talking to Holly Rowe on the field after the game like, yeah, we had the better team. We felt like it. Turned out that way. I think this team views themselves as an apex predator in the SEC. I really do. And when you see yourself that way, it changes the entire trajectory of the competitive approach to every single game that you have. The reason why they feel that way, I think one part of it is a leadership aspect, quite frankly. I think Marcel Reed is a cool customer. I think he's a savage competitor, and I think that is right in line with how Mike Elko operates. I think Mike Elko in himself is a savage. I think he doesn't care who's on the other side of the field. He's in that post-game press conference after they're 8-0 for the first time again since like 1992 and beat LSU in Baton Rouge, and he's getting upset at the people in the press conference for not raising their hands. He's like, no, we didn't make a statement out here tonight. We just won a football game. Next question. Like, Mike Elko's got some military savage to him as well. And so all of those things combined, I think A&M's just at a different place psychologically. I really do. And with the lack of relief they seem to feel week in and week out, I trust them down the stretch. Schedule, psychology, personnel, all that, A&M, based on what I've seen so far, yeah, it's a bye week, and yeah, there's reason to be a little bit anxious based on the history at A&M. I would just enjoy this if I'm an A&M fan. I really would. I think that needs to be said out loud if you're part of the 12th man here today. So appreciate y'all being down and being subscribed. But A&M fans, I know it feels wrong to believe it, but I would do just that. I would believe it. All right. So Week 10 is on the doorstep for us here. We're about to let it in. But before we get to Week 10, we got Halloween tomorrow, dude. So let's break this down here and talk a little bit of a couple of shots we want to call here on Week 10 of the college football season. Let's go over to Cato right now. Oh, my gosh. Cato. Are y'all seeing this? Who is – let me check in the back. No, that's – Cato, what's up, man? We're in the spirit of Halloween, man. You look good.
Happy Halloween, everyone. Have the Friday the 13th shirt on.
People on podcasts are like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, this is why you got to get off the pod every now and then and see what we got going on. I always joke with you when you wear the black T-shirt, you look very Tom Cruise. You look very, very actorly. So I think that's your costume. And
do our own stunts.
That was mine, yeah.
Now, this is a terrible question, but I'm just going to expose myself here. Jason mask? Is that what that is?
Correct. Good
okay,
job.
Cool.
Good job.
Cool. From Friday the 13th.
Yes, correct. You got
cool.
it all. You did it.
We did it, man.
There's a lot of characters. There's Myers, there's Kruger, there's Jason. The older you get, the more you forget. I'm not a scary movie guy at all either, so like I have a limited knowledge there as well, but you did it, man. Correct guess.
You look scary. A good scary, man. And a good scary is Week 10 slate, dude.
Yeah.
It's going to be a scary Week 10 slate. Halloween teeing us up into Saturday. We've typically done superlatives, but I want to switch up the flow a little bit here and just get a little bit more aggressive and make some predictions here for Week 10 of the college football season. We did our preview and prediction show. We've given you our takes throughout the week, but I feel like it's appropriate to give the folks some final shots to call here before we head into Week 10 of the college football season. But let's stay true to the superlatives and give the people an upset that you're tracking here ahead of Week 10, man. You want to start us off here? I feel like with that mask, we can't go away from what you just brought to the table juice-wise. I feel like we got to keep feeding the hot hand here. You got an upset top of mind that you're tracking relative to this slate?
Yeah, I have two, and I'm curious if one of yours is the same as mine, so I'm going to go with the one that's probably more underrated. Texas Tech going to Kansas State. Injury at the quarterback position for Texas Tech. You're supposed to have Baron Morton coming back. But this Kansas State team is a lot different than the team we saw earlier in the year that was getting upset by Army and not looking good. 2 straight weeks for them. 41-28 win against TCU, a team that I think most people thought is much better than Kansas State, if we're being honest. Then you beat rival Kansas, put another 40 points up in that game. I think they're feeling themselves a little bit. I think they're looking a lot more like the team we thought could have been a preseason Big 12 pick to win the conference. I think that's a sneaky spot, and I think with the injuries for Texas Tech and them maybe being a little bit off their game, I think that's an upset spot I'm watching. I don't know if Kansas State can win it outright. The Big 12, I think it's about that time of year for it to get a little crazy there and some unpredictable things to happen. But I think they definitely cover that 7.5, and I think that a win could be on the table for K-State at home in the Little Apple with some better energy the last couple weeks.
Kansas State with the festive theme there. It's alive.
Yeah.
We thought after Dublin, we're like, man, we're all wrong Kansas State. And then they just thwack Kansas, rolling into the spot. I like that take, Cato. 7.5 feels a little bit generous when it comes to that one.
It's Texas Tech. They usually do the thwapping, but we'll see.
They do.
I think it's a good spot though for Kansas State. I think they can catch them slipping here on this spooky weekend.
The more we say it out loud, speaking to Texas Tech, speaking to how good they've been this year, that line almost makes you raise an eyebrow.
Yeah, because they've had plenty of double-digit lines, and you could death taxes in them covering normally. Yeah. But this is I think Vegas is a little up on what I'm thinking too. That this could be an interesting spot for them.
Well, I like that. I'll see you that one, and I will throw your way Virginia Tech over Louisville. Louisville. A lot of talk around Jeff Brom. Is he up for the LSU job? He'd be fun at Florida. Is he on the Florida, job search watch? Virginia Tech just ran roughshod over Cal. Now it was an overtime game, so they didn't run roughshod, but they ran roughshod on the ground. It was like, 300-plus rushing yards? It was egregious, dude.
Kyron Drones just read Option City. Yeah.
Just like it was a clinic. Like I think Andy Staples tweeted it out. He's like, Cal looks like they've never practiced against the read option a day in their life.
Nope.
Felt like to me I was calling the offense in NCAA 14, just read option after read option after read option. Could be a similar vibe here where Louisville's got to go on the road. They're a double-digit favorite. The talk around their head coach. You got a mobile quarterback that you got to tackle time and again. I'm just saying, man, I like Va Tech in that spot, man. I'll go ahead and say that Virginia Tech outright wins that game. At home, enter Sandman's, blaring, Hollow Weekend. I'll take Virginia Tech in the upset there, brother.
Yeah, I think their interim head coach after that game was very emotional about the win. They've won 3 games under him now. Like they're kind of rolling, man. I think he might be putting himself in his hat in the ring as a candidate to maybe keep that job. We saw that work for Brent Key and some other teams in the ACC historically. Parting shot here for the ACC. We talked about it this week. Miami last year, this was the time where they were a little bit on the fence. So I think Miami, just in general, based on the nature of what happened last year, should be on upset watch the rest of the year. And I think this SMU game, going to SMU, sleepy 11 a.m. local kick there in Texas. The last 6 quarters for Miami, we've seen some highs and some lows. And I don't think this SMU team is bad by any means. They've got some bad breaks this year. They had, I think, the game of the year against Baylor where we saw their offensive ceiling. I think this is a tough spot for Miami as they're still trying to figure some stuff out, I think. And I think they're just on upset watch in general for the rest of the year, but especially this spot against the team that was playing the ACC title game last year.
Maybe a little bit personal, too. Rhett Lashley, previously at Miami. I don't know if it's personal in the sense that he doesn't like Miami, but you wonder if maybe he's like, yeah, I know that logo. I know that team. I want to go get back my former logo. I don't know. We'll see. That's a fun one, though. I like that one a lot. I agree with you on Miami. We are watching them like a hawk here down the stretch. Now, speaking of Hawks, a lot of Hawks in Texas, Cato. I don't know if there's a lot of Hawks in Austin, but I've seen my fair share of Hawks having lived in Waco. Texas is going to play Vanderbilt this weekend. I think my prediction for that game, to kind of reset this whole discussion, this is a call your shot segment, a prediction segment for week 10 of the college football season, some parting shots. I think Steve Sarkisian's heard everyone talking about, should he be calling the offense? Should he still be calling the plays? I don't know if Arch is going to play or not at the time of us recording this, but wouldn't it be the most Steve Sarkisian thing ever to walk out there with Matthew Caldwell and just dial up a game plan against an aggressive front 7 of Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt's the new kid on the block, and they're rolling, and Texas now quietly 2.5-point favorite at the crib is how it opened at least. I think Texas has an offensive, maybe not like clinic, but I think it's an offensive mastermind kind of showing by Steve Sarkisian that shows up in a big way, and Texas doesn't pull off the upset because they're favored. They just win the game. And I think it's a big reason why is Steve Sarkisian dialing it up.
Yeah, I like Texas in this spot too. I think it's so hard because Vanderbilt has just been so stingy in the red zone this year. Teams get to sniff in that end zone there, and Vanderbilt just locks the gates on them. So I think with an Arch Manning playing in this game and you have his legs and a little bit more ability in that department, I think that gives Texas a huge edge. But I think with Caldwell, we saw him throw an absolute seed to win that game in overtime. So he looks comfortable in that area of the field too. Definitely going to be a good matchup. I think Vanderbilt has all of kind of the intangible stuff you love right now, and Texas has been lacking that with their last 2 games going to overtime against the bottom teams in the league. Vanderbilt's the complete opposite, man. They're rising to the occasion. They're not letting the moment get too big for them. So I like that pick for sure, but this will be a close one. I think this will be a good one, and I'm excited to see whatever Texas rolls out at quarterback. For me, I'll go in the same vein as you. This is not an upset by any means, but just something I feel strongly about this week. JD, I think USC absolutely rolls over Nebraska. I think we had a bye week to kind of forget about USC. The last time we saw them play, it was them getting rolled by Notre Dame, who we both kind of agree, if that game's not pouring rain and Notre Dame's allowed to impose their will running the ball, if they're not returning kickoffs for touchdowns, we think that game could look a little bit differently. Both of these teams played Michigan, and I think it was pretty clear which one looked better in that matchup. Minnesota's beating Nebraska really showed us the floor of that team, only putting up 3 points. And I think this offense is going to be light years ahead of anything Nebraska has seen this year. Jay Maava, I believe, is one of the 3 just best quarterbacks in the nation right now when it comes to passing yards.
Yeah.
Lemon, Lane, it's going to be something Nebraska, I think, isn't quite ready for. And I think we've quickly forgotten that USC has shown us in the trenches already this year against a common opponent that they can hang with a Michigan, they can hang with a Nebraska, I think, for sure. And the number one thing that really worries me when you talk about the Jaden Maava of it all, Nebraska, JD, is the 3rd worst team in the Big Ten when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback, only 12 sacks this year. I think you're going to have to disrupt Jaden Maiava to have a chance in this game, and I don't think they're going to do it. So I think USC rolls. I think that line's at 6.5 according to BetMGM. I would take them to cover that because I think USC, after a bye, having plenty of time to rest up, goes to Lincoln and makes that one ugly.
I'm with you. The idea that Jaden Maiava is going to have some time to play darts back there.
He's patting the ball, man.
With those receivers. Now, Nebraska's a good secondary by the numbers, but they hadn't seen
nothing like this.
Hadn't seen some firepower, some horsepower rather, from USC that they're going to bring to the table there. So maybe you get some weather is your hope, I guess, if you're Nebraska. Maybe some Matt Rule third-year magic, but I'm with you. I think Maiava is dime dealing. I think Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon eat greedy. And maybe we look at USC and say, okay, you got to play Oregon at the end of the year. Yeah, but playoff hope's still intact for the Trojans. That'll be a storyline we're tracking for both sides, I suppose, out of that one. But I think we'll be saying the same thing about USC as you just said right there. How about the ACC, Cato? We'll go from a team that plays on the West Coast in USC that's going to go out to Lincoln to a team that gets to play at their home stadium on the West Coast up in Northern California. I think the Calgorithm hands Virginia their first ACC loss of the season. JKS is so fun. He is so electric pushing the ball downfield. And Virginia, I love Virginia. This is a Chandler Morris program right now. I am first team all Chandler Morris stan.
You are.
However, we've talked about this. At some point in time, if you fly close enough to the sun, man, that wax that holds the feathers together, the wings, it melts. And Virginia has been so watchable, but 3 overtime games the last 3 weeks, that's exhausting. You got to go out to play Cal at their place, time change, long flight. Sagapatelli's deal. I think they dropped that game. I do. Maybe it's overtime, but I think Cal ends up winning that game, bouncing back off their own overtime loss to Virginia Tech and hands Virginia their first loss in ACC play.
I think that's the beauty of this show is that our Monday segment with 25 questions, I asked you if the luck is going to run out for Virginia. And now as we get to the last show of the week, we bookend our last segment with you tying it all home, having all week to stew on that answer you gave and to double down and say, yeah, Cal is going to win this game. Cal is so fun to watch. They could have easily beat Virginia Tech if JKS just got some help, man. We got guys dropping balls. It's just the play calling and the 2-minute drill was terrible. Cal likes to get in their own way, but I think at home they're feeling good. And like you said, man, like these games have been so close for Virginia. Surely the luck will run out eventually. I like this spot for Cal for sure, but if Virginia does pull it off and it's another close one, I mean, you can argue that there's the all no flinch team is Virginia. We're just overtime, fourth quarter, up, down, don't matter, don't flinch. The heart rate there of the Who's right now is unbelievable.
Freon in the veins.
Yeah, for sure. The ice water. I'm gonna go with more of a player take here, JD, coming up this weekend. I think Joey Aguilar has his Heisman moment this weekend against Oklahoma. This dude has very quietly been one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. Number 3 right now in passing yards in the nation. I don't think he's had a lot of big stages. The last time he had a huge stage was in that Georgia game. And if they win that game, I think we have him in the Heisman conversation and we'll continue to ride that wave. He's been doing the same thing, but it's died down now. I think Tennessee's going to win this game. I think Joey Aguilar is going to be the reason why I think he's going to play great. And I think the fact that you're giving his play caller and Josh Heupel a week's worth of film to see what Ole Miss did with Lane Kiffin, I think he's going to take some of that, sprinkle it into the game plan, and deal. And I think Joey's going to play a great game. I think we're going to talk about Joey more as a Heisman candidate after this game. And if they win this one, JD, you already know how the rest of Tennessee's schedule looks. Could get another Heisman moment at the end of the year hosting Vanderbilt. I think that could put the cherry on top as far as him going to New York. I think Joey Aguilar does it this weekend. I think we get more hype. We hear more praise out of him. Bye week for Marcel Reed. Joey Aguilar steps in and puts his name in that running. I think this is a Heisman kind of moment weekend for Joey Aguilar in Knoxville.
That's a big boom right there. That's a big boom. We bring the boom to you. Dude, that was awesome. That fired me up. And I think you're on the money. If they start pushing the ball downfield in that spot with the dark mode uniforms on, and he's out there putting up big numbers. Month of November, they remember November. November is for the Heisman Trophy. I love that take,
I didn't even think about the uniforms. That makes me feel even better about
just
it.
Ratchet
In those
it up.
uniforms,
just ratchet it up a little bit, dude.
This is my crystal ball take here. Like, if we have future Heisman races that are a little bit sleepy throughout the season, I think the narrative of a team that's already lost 2 games, defending those 2 losses the rest of the year will be something we look at like moving forward. Like, that's really impressive. Like, it's like, okay, like Tennessee lost their 2 games, but like they just got on this quarterback's back and he refused to let them lose and took them to the playoff. I think that's going to be something the voters really respect in the future. So I think that's an opportunity Joey has now. And in the future, a bunch of teams, if they get 2 losses early and they can just defend their playoff hopes the whole year throughout the season, I think that'd be big.
Well, not to go down the Heisman rabbit hole, but I think what you just said is another great point. When we expanded the playoff to 12 teams, we started tracking way more of these teams during the month of November. I say we, nationally, a lot of people kept more tabs on 2-loss teams, I think, than ever before. Whereas in previous years, if you're talking about the 4-team playoff or even the BCS, it's like, oh, they have 2 losses. They're probably not going to be in the national title race. So therefore, I'm going to look at these teams that have 1 or 0 losses, look at their quarterback, and vote for their guy for the Heisman Trophy. Expanded playoff is making the Joey Aguilar case that could be made here this Saturday in Neyland against Oklahoma that much more valid. I'll kind of stick in that vein with you, Cato. I got Cincinnati going into Salt Lake City during the Sickos Hour special and planting their flag as a team that will be in Jerry World for the Big 12 title game. And a big reason why will be one Brendan Sorsby. He's been awesome. He's been must-see. I don't know how many people are going to be up to watch this game, but I do think that you see the Brendan Sorsby Heisman campaign to kind of tell you a little bit here, kind of get a little clear and just kind of jump it up a little bit. Maybe not bring it back to life, but just get it a little bit more electricity. I think this is that spot for Cincy. I think that's the spot for Sorsby, and I think that he ends up launching his Heisman candidacy, and we all take Cincy a lot more not take them in a more real sense, but they prove they are for real when it comes to that Big 12 title hope and that playoff aspirations.
So I'm glad you touched on this game because this was the game I was also in for my last shot to call. I knew I wanted to highlight this game. I love the Big 12. I love that they're getting College Game Day, and I love that this game will get featured nationally this week. But I could not figure out a shot to call because there's just so many different factors, the Sorsby of it all, the Utah defense of it all, Dampier's not playing. So my shot was going to be that when we get in here Sunday, we're going to say this was the best game of the week.
Ooh, I like that.
I think the 10-point spread is a little egregious. I get that Utah is a very hard place to play. Some would say the hardest place to play in the entire conference. But Cincinnati has the best player. They have Brendan Sorsby. Like, this guy has been playing unreal this year, JD. 20 touchdowns, 1 pick, 7 touchdowns on the ground. He has 27 touchdowns. He's experienced. This is his 4th year of college football. They have the best player in the game. I don't think he's going to let them lose by 10 points. This team has been completely different since week 1 against Nebraska. They've been absolutely rolling. And I think my biggest fear, outside of the Devin Dampier injury being one thing to worry about, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? We saw how he looked against Texas Tech when he wasn't fully healthy. Utah had an amazing showing against Colorado, 53-7 win. The problem with that is they won that game on the ground both ways, run defense and rushing the ball. They ran the ball 51 times for 422 yards.
Yeah.
Held Colorado
That's
to
awesome.
Colorado to 38 yards on the ground. Bird Flicken played an amazing game running the ball. I don't think you can just do that against Cincinnati, though. Like, if Dampier's not playing, you can't just do this heavy run style against Cincinnati, I think, and get away with it. I think that's going to be a real equalizer if he doesn't play. And I think the Cincinnati team, JD, I've been on Scott Satterfield teams that forget how to lose, and they get used to winning. They just win. It's the expectation. You do it week in and week out. Man, this is a good spot for Cincinnati. I don't have a pick. I think the injury is going to be a big factor as far as last minute who I pull the trigger on the BetMGM app. But it has all of the ingredients, I think, of the game of the week, and I think that's what we'll be saying Sunday. We're going to say Brendan Sorsby's arrived, Cincinnati's arrived, or we're saying Utah that can do it with a backup quarterback that can still run the ball. Look at the home field advantage. I love that this is College Game Day too, all the hype. And then both teams just chill all day, man. Sit back, watch some ball, get your mind right, and then when it's 9 Central here, cut it loose, and we'll get to watch it. So I think this will be the game of the week. I'm really pumped for it, and I think all of the factors, all of the storylines just make it a instant classic in the making.
Yeah, if you're a Ute fan, you got to lock in for game day in the morning. You're up early, maybe up all night potentially, watching ball all day, getting your strength back, getting ready to roll for a night game out there in Salt Lake. It's going to be awesome, dude. I can't wait. I love that take. Kato, anything else?
That's all I got, man. Happy Halloween. Y'all be safe out there. King-size candy bars for the real ones.
Yeah, like let's not skimp on the candy this year, y'all. If you're giving out Kit Kats, make it the big ones. If you're giving out Hershey bars, make it the big ones. Make it the big one. It's just a good rule in life, but especially on Halloween.
And it's a Friday too. Like, we don't get Halloween on a Friday every year. Take advantage of it, guys. I mean, this is rare air. I remember growing up as a kid, and it's like Halloween's on a Tuesday.
Yeah,
What,
I got school tomorrow.
Gotta go back to school. Yeah, like cut it loose, kids. Get a sugar rush. There's no excuses. Let's get spooky, man. Let's have a good Halloween.
There we go, man. Like A&M fans right now, if you're having a Halloween festivity on a Friday, enjoy it. Soak it up. It's real. It's real. Appreciate y'all being real ones and making this show what it is. For Cato on the ones, the twos, the microphone, and myself, JD PicKell, we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Have a happy and safe Halloween. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.